we got just hit with so much all at the same time. And I quite often say that God didn't just bring us to our knees. We were face first in the dirt and we had nowhere else to look but up.
At that moment, and I realised that he lived in the car. Like I could see all his belongings in the car. And God spoke to me right then and said, all I want you to do is pray for this man. And, for me, I was like, no, did you see what he did?
Miracles with food, where we had some lamb that, was only supposed to feed 30 to 40 people. And, we're standing there praying over this pot and we're watching it and watching it and watching it.
Please take into consideration too that we will be covering sensitive topics. So if you or someone you know of is in need of support, then please call Lifeline on 13 11 14. That number again is 13 11 14. And in today's episode, I was so honored to be joined by Matt and Tammy from Let Hope Arise Inc., who have now officially become a local charity organization that are making a huge impact in the community of Bundaberg, from feeding the homeless to troubled youths. But look, stick around to hear their story and what they shared and how you could also possibly get involved in supporting their cause. And so, you know the drill. Let's get to it. Hey guys, welcome back to another brand new episode of The Round Table. Today I'm here in this beautiful park on the north end of Bundaberg, and I'm joined by two special guests from Let Hope Arise Inc., which we'll get to dive in later and hear more about the great work they're doing here in the community of Bundaberg. But before we kick off, as always, the round table symbolizes a safe space where stories are shared, voices heard, and lessons learnt. So pull up a seat and join me on the journey, because every story shared here matters. Matt, Tammy, welcome to the round table.
Hello.
Before we kind of dive into it all, do you mind just sharing a little bit about yourselves and your background?
Okay, so Tammy's a local from Bundaberg. Tammy's lived here her whole life, essentially. I came here in 1996, and I came from Mackay, but we moved all over the place. We were very nomadic when we were younger. But our family decided to settle here in Bundaberg. So I became a carpenter, got an apprenticeship, became a carpenter, and we've raised our three girls here. We've got three daughters.
Nice.
Yeah, they're all teenagers. One's 21, 15 and 17, so that's an interesting journey right now. So yeah, we sort of, we're really not part of anything. I worked really hard in my business. I was a carpenter. We raised our kids and we didn't really worry about the community so much. So there was not a lot of engagement with that. We just sort of did our own thing. And it wasn't until 2017 when I actually injured my back really bad and I couldn't work. So that changed pretty much everything, because suddenly I couldn't earn money. I couldn't, I was in bed a lot, like I couldn't get out of bed. I had to have back surgery. So we sort of went from being financially stable to sort of not knowing where our next meal might come from, essentially. So we sort of started to see what was going on the other side of the community that maybe we hadn't seen before. But we had a lot of family around us and stuff, so we sort of, people would turn up to our house with pumpkins and stuff, and we'd have, pumpkin soup for dinner, or, it did get pretty bad. And, we used to go to Woolworths, and I'd take the kids to Woolworths and they'd eat the free fruit. And then we'd go, because we literally didn't have an income for a while. So it's sort of, 2017 was really the sort of change point for us. And we also sort of found God in that process. So we started to...
How did that come about?
Well, for me, I became very depressed, and ultimately I became like suicidal. I felt like I'd let my family down. I'd felt like because I couldn't work, our bills got out of hand, and I had to enter into bankruptcy. So that was very, very, very difficult for me because I lost kind of everything that I'd ever worked for.
Just before, what about you, Tammy? What were you feeling during those times? What you witnessed?
Yeah, it was very, it was very difficult. Around that same time, I'd also had a tumor in my breast, and I was scared that I was going to die when my kids were so young. And our daughter had also had a little accident and had broken a bone in her neck. So, like, we got just hit with so much all at the same time. And I quite often say that God didn't just bring us to our knees. We were face first in the dirt, and we had nowhere else to look but up. We literally had nowhere else to go. And it was in this time that, my sister had attended a particular church, and we'd noticed a change in her. And I woke up one Sunday morning, 20 years of being in the wilderness, so to speak, without God. And Matt just wakes up one Sunday morning and said, I think we need to go to church, after 20 years of not walking with the Lord. So, it was life-changing. Walking into that church was life-changing, and we haven't looked back since. It's been an incredible experience. Having Jesus in our life, it literally changed our life. It saved our life. It saved Matt's life. I know that for sure.
So was it like a dream for you that kind of made you want to change your life, Matt, or?
Not really. I sort of, I was pretty much in the throes of suicide, I suppose, and then I sort of started yelling out to God. I was crying, I was screaming out, and I said, if you're real, where are you? And in that, the next couple of minutes, my sister called me, and she's a psychologist. So she lived in Newcastle at the time, which is, not near here. She had no kind of idea what was going on. But for her to ring me in the middle of the day, I suddenly thought, and then she sort of spoke to me and realised where I was at, and what was going on, and kind of, she really changed, the tone of what was going on that day. And I believe that was God's intervention, because I'm here screaming out to God, where are you? If you're real, show me that you're real. And next thing, my sister rings. So for me, that was like a moment where I went, well, God sees this, we're not alone, kind of thing. Because I did feel very alone. I felt like, I was letting everybody down, and I was all, on my own. And suddenly I realized there was people, and God was there as well. And then, then we had a series of things happen, and like phone calls from church pastors and all sorts of things that were just so out of the blue for me. One of the problems that we had at the time was I had a Nissan Patrol, and I had, like, the tyres on it were really worn out, and one of the tyres, the front tyres, would just keep going down all the time. So we tried to fix it, but we couldn't afford a new tyre. We were in really bad trouble, and I'd literally have to pump it up before I left home, pump it up when I got to the town, and it was a continual problem for us, and it was really something that really irked me, and I thought, and we had no way of fixing this problem. And then a church pastor rings me and says, I want you to do me a favour. I want you to go and buy one tyre for your car. And at that moment, I realised, like, hey. So I ring a tyre shop, and they said, yes, we have one tyre here that you can buy. It's, they normally sell them in sets or doubles and stuff. And he says, no, we got this one here, you can buy that. And he gave it to us at a cheap price. And I rang the pastor and said, there you go, sort of thing. And he went and paid for it, and we got our tyre. But it was just a moment that changed the way that I looked at what was going on. It was sort of a perspective shift for me. And then I realised that God was there, and it sort of started my journey on searching for him more and more. And, that was 8 years ago now. So our journey to this point has been kind of, like Tammy said, we had nowhere but up to go. So we just kept searching for God, and God just keeps opening doors everywhere, all the time for us. So if we just keep following him, we can't really go wrong, I don't think. So that's what our aim is at this point, just to keep following what he's doing. So we've had some very incredible experiences in the last 8 years. And, you know, Let Hope Arise only came about probably 2 years ago, officially.
What was the inspiration or motivation behind that?
So about 4 years ago, I was working as a school chaplain. So I became a school chaplain like a couple of years after 2017. And I was on my way home from work, and I just picked up my kids from school, and I was driving through town, and I was sitting at lights, and a man drove his car into the side of my car from the centre parking, and he just went straight up under the back of the ute on the side. And, you know, I was a bit shaken up that this guy would do this, and I was a bit angry, actually. And, you know, I had Chappie Matt on my shirt. I was a school chaplain. Right, so I get out of the car, and I'm like going over there, and I'm like, what's going on with you, mate? You know, are you blind, sort of thing? You know, I was a bit angry. And then I sort of looked in the car at that moment, and I realised that he lived in the car. Like, I could see all his belongings in the car. There was blankets, there was food, there was like everything he owned. And it sort of, at that moment, I sort of saw that, and God spoke to me right then and said, all I want you to do is pray for this man. And, you know, for me, I was like, no, did you see what he did? You know, he just drove into me. Did you see that? You know, so I said to him, don't you dare move. And I moved my car because I was in the middle of the road, and I got off the road, and I get in the car, and my kids are like, what are you going to do now, Dad? And I'm like, I don't know, just be quiet. So I go back to the man. His name was Graham. So he became quite an inspiration for us in what we were doing. So Graham was a really old, he was in his 70s, but he was very old 70s. He had a walking stick. So when I went back to the car, I said to him, you know, I started to soften a little bit. I could see that he was in some sort of distress as well. He was not he was shaking a bit, and he was a bit emotional. And I said, what's going on, buddy? And he said, oh, I've just found out I got prostate cancer. So, and in that moment, he pushed the wrong pedal, and he driven into my car. And he said, is it all right if I get out and have a look at your car and see what damage, you know, I'm a mechanic. And he gets out, and he's bent over, and he sort of couldn't walk. He had a walking stick. So he was very frail, very grumpy and rough old guy, but very frail. And he goes to my car, and he looks at the side of the car, and he says, what are you worried about? And there's a scratch on there. There's no dents. There's nothing else. So I realised at that moment that this was God interrupting my day to have a look at this guy. So I said, right, buddy, forget the car, but I want to pray for you. Can I do that? And he said, yeah, I'd love that. So I prayed for him. I gave him my phone number. We prayed in the middle of the road, and then I gave him my phone number. And then from that period, I'd sort of visit him. So he lived at the rest area near the airport at Hinkler Lions Park, I think it's called. And he used to park his car there at night. And then, so I'd go and visit him, and we built a friendship. And he'd call me every now and then. He didn't have a phone though, so he would flag people down at the rest area and say, can you call Matt for me? And, you know, give them the phone number, and they'd ring me and say, I'm just at the rest area. Do you know a guy called Graham? And I'm like, yep, all right, I'm coming out to see him. So over a period of about a year, we sort of built this really strong friendship, and we walked with him through a lot of different things, and through his sickness as well. So his cancer got worse, and his health got worse in general, and his hygiene was worse, and everything was worse because it was very hard for him to do anything. And then he sort of deteriorated to the point where he had to go to the hospital, but he wouldn't go to the hospital unless his car was safe. So we used to have to go and pick up his car, and he'd get in the ambulance, and I'd drive his car to my house, and we'd park it there until he got out of the hospital, and then I'd go and take his car back to him, sort of thing, because it was his home. And he was very independent, but it came a time where he couldn't actually go back to the car anymore, and I became his enduring power of attorney. So from him running into me to that moment where I became his enduring power of attorney, that was just an unexpected. So I made all those decisions for him at the end of his life. The doctors and nurses would come and talk to me because he wasn't really capable of making any of those decisions. So it was sort of a very sort of humbling experience that this man sort of put his trust in us. And Tammy was there as well with that, and we sat with him for the last week of his life. We sat with him from about 6 in the morning till about 11 o'clock at night, because we didn't want him to die alone, essentially, and we sort of wanted him to have people around him and family, and we would play worship music in the room with him, and we would just sit there with him and read the Bible to him sometimes, and just be there, because we didn't want him to go on his own. And as it turned out, I had to leave the room and go and do something, and that's when he passed away. He passed away when Tammy was sitting next to him. So it sort of, that changed our whole perspective of what's going on for people. And through that process, we sort of, when he was still alive, we thought we need to do something, because I started to see all of these people living in their cars. And it was before there was a really big problem here in Bundaberg. It was sort of like there was just groups of them, and they all lived in their cars. They were all kind of very independent of each other. So they didn't know each other either a lot of the time. They were very sort of secretive about what they did and where they slept and all of that. They didn't want anyone else to steal their spots and all that kind of thing. So we thought, well, we got to do something. And someone gave me a barbecue, a mate of mine, and it sat on my front veranda for a long time. And I thought, what can we do? What can we actually do to help them? That's going to like be practical, that we could pull off, but it's going to mean something. So we thought, well, let's just chuck a barbecue, and let's do a barbecue and see what happens. So that was the first idea, and I started to tell some people around me, like my family, my dad, and my friends and stuff. And I said, I want to chuck a barbecue. What do you think? Do you think it's a good idea? And they were like, oh, we'll help you. So we sort of. Yeah, we grabbed that barbecue and put it in the back of the ute, and we took it down there one night, and we told everyone, for about a week, we said we're going to have a barbecue on Tuesday night, come over. And we ended up having 10 of these guys come over to the barbecue, and it was at near the airport there, and there's one sort of shelter shed at the back. We were underneath on the table there underneath the roof, and we had torrential rain that night. It literally, when we set up, it was fine. And then this storm came over, and so the whole time we had umbrellas over the food, cooking the food, and we were standing in ankle deep water. It was just like the whole joint flooded.
Thongs were floating away.
Some people's thongs floated off, and we couldn't find them in the dark. But it was sort of, for me, it was a confirmation that we were on the right track, because these guys, they loved it. Like these 10 guys, the conditions were terrible, but they absolutely just loved it. They chatted with us, they chatted with each other, and we thought, we're on to something here. So we started doing a fortnightly barbecue every Tuesday night, and after a while we sort of figured out that they had trouble remembering which Tuesday it was. So we thought, well, we're gonna have to do it every week, because that way they'll know, every Tuesday they're gonna have a dinner. So we started doing that, and we ended up with about between 30 and 40 people every Tuesday night for a while there, and they were all people that were homeless. And because at that time is when sort of COVID was ending, and all the people were migrating north out of like Victoria and all of those places. So Bundaberg was getting inundated with sort of southerners essentially, and they were buying the houses here that were rentals. So a lot of the people that were on the lower end of the rental market sort of became homeless, and they couldn't find anywhere to go. So there was sort of little tent cities popping up. Even under this bridge here, there was a bit of a tent city at one point.
Yeah.
So we sort of found ourselves right in the right place at the right time to actually be the people helping. And we by then we'd gained quite a team of us as well. At the start, like some of the times we had more of a team there than actually people we were feeding. So that was really awesome. So people, once they knew what we were doing and what was going on, they wanted to come and help. More and more people wanted to help us. So we sort of, it grew from Tuesday night, and then the ladies at Angels, Sue and Jasmine, they sort of popped over and checked us out, because they'd been hearing about us from these guys, and so they said, well, why don't you come and do one in our car park on a Monday night? So that sort of grew into a Monday night as well. So we'd do a Monday night and Tuesday night. So Tuesday night the rest area, Monday night in town, in Angels car park. And then that sort of grew from like 10 at the first one on the Monday night to, in the end, at Angels we were probably feeding 80 people every Monday. And then we're also feeding about 50 to 60 people on a Tuesday night. So it's sort of, it just kept growing and growing. And the needs, like, there was so much need. We couldn't help everybody. We were just trying to feed the people we could put in front of us. And not just feed them, we were like, part of what we're trying to do is create a space where people can have community. So they actually realize they're not alone, where they can get some emotional support. They can chat with people. They can know that they're loved in that space and they're welcome, and it's their space as well. So it sort of grew from, now we feed, on average, we feed about 200 to 230 people every Monday night. And every Tuesday night we probably feed on average about 70 to 80 people still. So we've also...
Is that a good thing though?
Probably not a great thing, but it is a good thing as far as people are getting support. They're getting to come along and talk to each other, talk to us. And we've seen some massive changes in some of these guys, like just knowing that they're loved, that someone sees them. You know, we're a Christian group, and we share a little message before we eat, and we say grace. And then we have Bibles on the table, and that's kind of where it stops as far as that goes. But we're always available to pray for people. But the Bibles fly off the shelf. You know, people are looking for something, for hope. And that kind of brought us to where we are with Let Hope Arise, because that's why we called ourselves Let Hope Arise, because we believe that there is hope. And for us, you know, hope is Jesus Christ. But it's also in people getting together and realizing that we're not all alone. And, you know, people do see them and people do care. And not all of us know how to help either. So as a group of people, it's given some people a place to come and help people. You know, like there's an organisation where they can come, and it's not like we don't have a roster, which is really weird. A lot of people find that really hard to get. But we just sort of believe that every night we turn up, that there's not going to be enough helpers that are going to turn up. And, you know, so we don't have a roster. So we want people to come and be there when they want to be there, when they can. We don't want it to be a burden, like an obligation. It's sort of like they come because they really want to be there. So, and sometimes if I've got a bit low on helpers, I might grab a couple of the guys that we feed and say, come on guys, put your gloves on. But we've found over time that these guys actually are wanting to help us. So sometimes all of our team has to step back and let these guys actually serve their fellow people that live, you know, in very similar circumstances everywhere. But we sort of started out feeding homeless, but now it's more of a community barbecue. So we sort of found that there's so many people that may have a home, but they just don't have enough money to get through the whole week. Like we feed whole families once every week. You know, there's 7 or 8 kids in that family, and they'll come along just because, you know, they just can't afford the food bill for everybody. It just eases that pressure. We got lonely pensioners that come just because they're so lonely. This is an outing for them. It's somewhere where they can connect with people, they can chat, they can tell us how they're going. It gives them a space to be loved, essentially. A lot of them are very lonely. They don't have many family, and so we've sort of gone, you know, we have everyone from old people to young people. We have people that live on the street. We have people that live in their cars. We get some travellers that come through as well that are essentially homeless, but they just travel around living in their vans and stuff, and they just go from town to town as pension day comes, you know, there's a lot of people doing that today.
So with what you guys do, what are some of the areas that you cover around in Bundaberg? Is it just in Bundaberg alone, or what other areas?
Yeah, so we go to the Hinkler Lines Park at the airport every Tuesday, and we go to the car park opposite Angels now. So Angels decided to redirect what they do to more towards their community supermarket and their other initiatives. So in that process, we moved across the road into the car park. So it's kind of a public space. Part of what we do is like going out into the spaces where people are. So we don't believe that a lot of people want to come to you, like to your building, to wherever, you know. So we believe that if we go to their car park, go to the park, that's where they'll come. So it's sort of grown from that to every Friday we now go to Gingin as well, which is about half an hour's drive away. And we feed probably 55 people, I think we had at the last one. So that's really grown from, like, we had 6 people for a while, and then it went to like 15 people, and then 20 people, and now we're hitting 50 or 60 every single week. And that's Gin is very similar to here. There's a lot of people that are struggling to get through their weeks with the finances. Also, there's a lot of loneliness, a lot of people that just need other people to, connection, community connection. So
are we talking like all ages?
Yeah, we see everyone from kids there to elderly couples that come down just for like a meal and a chat. And it's sort of the highlight of their week. That's what they tell us. The elderly couples, they're like, this is the favourite place to come every Friday. So we sort of, and they hang around and talk, and that's really the cool thing. So after they've got their food, they're sitting down eating, and like it can be an hour later, and they're still there, all sitting around chatting. And that's sort of, for us, that's really what it's about. And we love that, and we find it hard to pack up and go because we sort of don't want to move them along, because they're having such a great time of connection. And then, my heart's always been for the youth as well. So that sort of started me on that skate park, the skate park kind of journey. Yeah, so we head down to the skate park every Thursday, which is where I met Harmy, who's a legend.
Absolutely, I've met him too.
Yes. So a group of us, like, I really had a heart for the youth, so I thought, I was hearing all these terrible stories about the skate park. They were throwing rocks at cars. They were, there was drugs being dealt there. There was a rape in the grassland behind there. There was all sorts of these bad things happening. So we thought, well, let's just go down there and spend some time with the youth, give them some sausages. So we take down sausage sizzle, like sausage and bread, some biscuits that we get, and cordial. So it's very simple, and sometimes fruit, or sort of things like that. So we essentially, like, just turn up there. We park out the front. We're not in their space, and they come to us and they get a feed, they get a drink, they have a chat. And now when we pull up, they're all waiting for us. So we started off there, and it was a bit like, who are you? And they're like very, standoffish. They're like, is it free? Do we have to pay? And all this sort of thing.
Hey guys, thanks again for tuning back in. And if you know someone who is in need of support, then please call Lifeline on 13 11 14. That number again is 13 11 14. Oh, and also, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and share with someone that you know could possibly benefit from what you've heard from today's show. So, without further ado, let's get back to it.
Well, they know it's all free. But now if we don't go 1 week, we usually don't go about Christmas. We have a week or two off. And these guys will be like, where were you last week? I was here waiting for you and you didn't come. And we sort of get in trouble. But we found that the whole skate park has calmed right down. So there's no problems on a Thursday night ever. It's the best night of the week. The kids tell me that they come down. And we could feed 100 kids there now every Thursday night. So it's sort of like, and it goes up and down, depends on what's going on. But probably a minimum of 40 to 50, but mostly around 80 to 90 to 100 people that we feed. And we'll feed their families, and we'll chat with anyone who comes down. And we just literally are there. We're feeding the guys. They come to the table like it's their own kitchen. They help themselves. They discipline each other, and they say, don't swear here, and all this sort of stuff. But they have this respect for us, which is really amazing, because a lot of people see them as these disrespectful, little brats. But when you look at their stories of where they got there and how they got there and what they have to do every day to survive and, to function in these dysfunctional kind of homes and situations, like, yeah, it's no wonder that they behave the way they do sometimes. And they just need that mentorship. They need that positive adult, they don't have a lot of positive adult interactions. And the police as well. So the PCYC come down with us as well. So they saw us doing this. And I met Harmy. And he's like, this is amazing, Matt. Let's get the PCYC to come. And they came. And Luke Hanley from the PCYC, he's an absolute legend as well, because he just goes out and does the stuff. Like it's not talking about it. It's not like we need to do this. He just goes and let's just do it, so. And he says to me, Matt, we're going to do this, you're going to come? And I'm like, of course I'm going to come, So we try and back each other everywhere and help each other. So that's why I love helping Harmy with Mighty Mitts, because I think he's onto something there. As a school chaplain, I did notice that age group, particularly the boys, they need that mentors. They need people that are going to show them the right way, because a lot of their role models are, gangsters. They're YouTube people, they're family who are possibly, I remember speaking to a grade 3 boy, and I said, what do you want to do when you grow up? And he goes, I don't know, probably just join the gang like my brother and like my uncle. And I'm like, that's all he's aspiring to. That's the only thing he sees. That's his lifestyle, and that's where he's aiming himself for. So, we need people like Harmy out there doing what he's doing to redirect them. And Luke Hanley, the PCYC. So there's another guy, Luke Collett. He's one of my other greatest supporters on a Thursday night at the skate park. And he works for North Bundaberg High School. He's a youth support coordinator. So yeah, he comes down and he'll know a lot of the kids, from his interactions through school. So it's really cool. They come down, they play basketball, they play games. There's a thing we do where they race the policemen down the footpath. It's like I don't know, it's as long as the fence. I'm not how far it is, but if they beat him, they get a pizza voucher. So
nice.
They all want to race the police guy and beat the policeman,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
And he's got a 50-50 thing where he's won 50 of them, and he sort of goes half. But yeah, they all get a pizza voucher. They love it. But it's really just being there and being positive and interacting with them and loving them essentially.
Nice.
Yeah.
Are there any particular moments that have been magical that you've seen the transformation within the different areas that you've visited each week? Any ones that stick out for yourself where you've seen a family 1 week and then a week later or two there's this huge transformation?
We've had some great experiences. We've had some bad ones, I'll say that first. So we've found people deceased in their caravans before. So we've found people that have had nobody to find them. So we've knocked on the door, we haven't seen them for a few days, and we could pretty quickly tell something's not right. And that's happened to us. We've walked up to cars to invite people to our barbecue, and they burst into tears because they said, we were actually going to end our lives tonight because we felt so alone and we were hungry, and here you are giving us food. So we've had plenty of those experiences. We've had lots of them. We've also, there's one guy I can think of particularly, and he's a big supporter of our team now. He's one of the ones that comes and helps behind the table now. But when I first met that guy, he was struggling really bad, and he was full of guilt and shame for the things that had happened in his life before that. He thought that everyone looked at him through those kind of eyes, that he wasn't, capable of changing. He wasn't capable of being anything. And through this process, we've seen that guy change so much, and we all see him now, and we just love we can see the radiance and the hope that he has. And we only see him on that night that he comes, but he's changed 100%, and now he's wanting to help us. He's behind the table. He's like, I'm coming next week, man. I'm going to do the tomatoes, and you're like, awesome, buddy. So he's probably one of our greatest success stories. I won't share his name because I don't know if he'd like people to know that. But and in the young people, we see them change all the time. There's one young guy, because we see some people into their 20s as well. They'll come down and they'll skate. And I'm a tradesman, so I get a lot of questions about what job could I do, or what should I do as a career, and all of this kind of stuff. And I sort of try and help them figure out what they are good at, what they want to do. They've got to enjoy what they do, and sort of try and point them in the right direction. And this one guy, he was very, very lost, and he sort of come down and we sort of thought that he was really good at looking after people. He was like one of these guys that would just look after all the other kids all the time, and we said to him, well, why don't you try and be a support worker? Why don't you go and do that? So he ends up getting himself a job as a support worker, and now this guy is bringing people down to the skate park. you know, he's got clients and he's working and he's just going really well, you know. And it's just like, because he didn't have anyone in his life to give him positive influence, you know, somewhere like do something, have a go, you know. And he's studying while he's working. Wow. And he's just like, he's amazing. He's another one of our great sort of success stories.
What about yourself, Tammy? Any particular ones stand out for you?
We have seen like so many like actual miracles happen, which is like, yeah, it's very exciting. So there was, right at the very start, there was this one guy who had like really bad ulcers on both legs. They were constantly wrapped up, weeping. He's living in his car, you know, the bandages were always dirty. And this one day we're like, can we pray for you? And he's like, yeah, sure. And then the next week there was only like a small bandage on one leg. And we're just like, wow, that's like a week. And, you know, we see him even now, like today, you know, it's like 4 years later, still have not seen bandages on his legs since. Like, his legs look perfect, which is pretty awesome. We've prayed for a lady who was living in her van, had a dog, was after a very specific job that, you know, she didn't want to leave her dog in the van all day or whatever, and hadn't been able to find a job. We prayed for her, find out, you know, the following Tuesday she got a job the very next day that accommodated all of her needs. So you know, we have seen miracles with food, where we had some lamb that, you know, was only supposed to feed 30 to 40 people, and, you know, we're standing there praying over this pot and we're watching it and watching it and watching it, and it lasted to the very last person and it fed 80 people, and it was only supposed to feed 30 to 40. Like, so, you know,
Goosebumps.
We're so thankful to God, you know, for being our provider. Provides all our needs, and, you know, and he provides their needs. And that's even more exciting, that we can introduce Jesus to these people and pray for them, and then for them to actually experience it firsthand is awesome. Yeah.
Okay, Matt, so what have been some of the biggest challenges you guys have faced?
The biggest challenges, I suppose, would be like, part of what we do is to be consistent. So we turn up every single week, you know, like, and sometimes that's, you know, like, sometimes you don't feel like doing it, but you know that you have to be there every week for these guys, you know, like, particularly with the kids, you know, if you don't turn up, as far as kids are concerned, people are leaving them all the time. People leave their lives, you know, all the time, you know, and it's whether it's their parents split up and leave, or whether it's, you know, it's all sorts of situations, and they don't expect anyone to stick around, anyone to care about them. And the fact that we're there every week, they just, like, it's paying off so much. And the same with the homeless guys, you know, like, if it's raining, it's very hard for us to do our barbecue as we normally do, but part of what we do now is we have bakeries that give us their gear at the end of the day, so, which is really cool. So we get like cream buns and pies and bread and all sorts of things. So even if it's raining, we'll still turn up in the rain and give them the bakery goods that we have, and that speaks so much to them guys. But that's not always easy for our team to do, you know, like, we're out in the rain, and we're sort of, it's sort of a big job for us, you know. We feed 400 people every week, and it's sort of like, it's a lot of work in the background, and financially as well, you know, like, so we're all volunteers, every single person, but, you know, Tam and I particularly, we're trying to work as well and fit all our family stuff as well as everything in, so sometimes that can be challenging.
Getting funded?
Well, funding itself, like, to run the barbecues, is not a real big problem. We seem to have, like, it just keeps sort of flowing in, and I believe that's, you know, if you're following where God says to go, he's going to provide for you. So we sort of just live on that. That's what we live on, that, you know, if God opens the door, he's going to give you the gear for what you need when you get in there. So we sort of we never really worry about the funding for the food or anything to do like that. It is sometimes challenging personally for us though, but so that's probably one of the biggest challenges, you know, when you're looking at your electricity bill and you're like, oh my goodness. And you know you've got all these events on in the next 2 weeks and you're sort of like, how am I going to get through this? But you know, we always do get through that, but that is the biggest, I think for us, that's the biggest challenge, is actually like learning how to trust God with our provision as well as the provision for the outreach itself. So we have a team of about 40 volunteers that work over the different 4 nights, so they're not all on the same night. And some people will help on 1 and some people help on 2, you know, like it depends what they want to do. At the skate park particularly, we have like a select group of people that, like, you know, like some of the older guys, they're like, kids need a clip around the ear and that's kind of it. But you know, like, that's just the way that they've been brought up and they've seen that in their lives. So we have a more select group on the Thursday night where we all have a heart for the youth. We all have a heart to love them, and you put up with the bad language and you put up with the rough stuff, and they're vaping sometimes and they're doing all these things. So, but yeah, the team itself, you know, it can be challenging as well with 40 different people from 40 different places, all
so
sort of going in the same direction.
You never have the same crew, or is it?
We do have the same crew, like the same people will likely turn up on the same night every week kind of thing. But we do, some of them drop off for a while, you know, their life will change, they'll have a job change or they'll have family stuff and they won't be able to come. But then they'll sort of, you know, 3 months time, they'll go, I'm going to come back and do this again. And so it's sort of like we just go with the flow, essentially, and let them sort of dictate their own lives, what they want to do, and just appreciate the time that we have with them when they come. And because we have such a diverse group too, so we have, a lot of us are Christians. I wouldn't say all of us, but a lot of us are, and like most of us. And we all go to different churches around the place, so we're not all from the same church. So, and that's exciting and interesting because we don't see things exactly the same way a lot of the time. We all have a different kind of view where we come from, our experiences. So it's sort of, it can be interesting sometimes when you know, how do people interpret situations that they come across? You know, like them old guys thinking that the kids just need a clip around the ear, you know, that's just their way of
how they grew up,
that's what they would probably, that's what happened to them when they were a kid. It's sort of the way that they deal with it. But so that can be interesting, that can be a challenge sometimes, but yeah.
What's something you'd like to see, or future goals in the next, say, 12 months?
So we're working towards, we were just registered as a charity.
Congrats.
Probably, yeah, thank you, a couple of months ago. So that was really cool. So before that, from about, I think it was the start of 2024, we became an incorporated group. So we had to do that to get public liability insurance and all of the things that go along with, you know, operating in public spaces. So volunteer insurance and all these sort of things. So to do that, we had to have a structure. Before that, we were sort of loosely structured under a church, and then they sort of changed the direction of what they were doing, and we wanted to keep going into the places, into the parks. We didn't want to go and do it in a building. We sort of just wanted to keep going out. So our team decided we'd form an incorporated group, and then we work our way through that to a charity status, and now we're working our way through the DGR status with the tax office. So that's the next step. So some of the other challenges that we have, actually, just now that I think about it, is like all that legal stuff that's in the background. Like we found it really hard to work out how to fill out the applications for these things and grant applications and all of that stuff. So
is that something?
That's something we probably need help with.
Someone who's probably listening and watching this could help you guys out with.
Yeah. So if you're a pro bono lawyer or something, or you know, understand this stuff. Yeah, please get in contact because we really need, that's something we really need help with. All our people work full time as well as try and do this stuff. So like Martin, my dad, he's the secretary of Let Hope Arise. So he does a lot of work in the background, but he's got a full-time job as well. So yeah, sometimes things take a little while because we've sort of got to work our way through as we can. But understanding and knowing what to do with all this stuff is quite a challenge because
Yeah.
none of us, I'm a practical guy. I'm a builder. You go and you do,
Yeah.
and all
Hands-on.
that stuff in the background. But yeah, in saying that, we're working towards possibly having our own premises of something like where we can start our nights from, finish our nights, store our trailers, store our like fridges and shelving, and have all our food there, and not so much to operate from as far as like do meals from there, but somewhere where we can base ourselves.
Yeah.
And come and go from there.
Like a storage unit to
Yeah, somewhere
park
where we
up
can,
and
yeah, so we can turn up there, set the trailer up, take it out, bring it back, and lock it up. Because at the moment, a lot of this stuff operates from our backyard and from our house. So our lounge room's got boxes of all sorts of things in there and under the TV. So it's sort of that's challenging a little bit too. We've got to because it is at home, we can't have a lot of people coming in to get the food to help. There's only a select few that we kind of can do that, So it's sort of, it's a bit hard. But if we get a premises, that's what we're really working towards. And then get that DGR status as well in the meantime. And then we can apply for different grants and sort of gather some more funding. We were donated a trailer by a really nice friend of Let Hope Arise. So he met us through some of our volunteers, and he said, I want to help you, I want to buy you a new trailer. So now we have 2 trailers because he generously bought us a trailer. And then we just received a food bank grant just like last week to help us kit the trailer out. So that will be a big change for us. That will be a big difference. So we'll be able to have it'll be an off-grid system in the trailer, so we can have fridges and we can run like a PowerPoint and stuff like that if we have to. And so that's going to make our enhance what we can do out there, which is really cool. So, but yeah, in the next 12 months, I'd aim for a premises of some kind, and then we can just keep going up from there. So, as part of this thing, the other thing we've just taken on is the sleep bus.
okay.
So we sort of, the man that Simon in Victoria who was running that, he was sort of looking for someone in the Bundaberg region because the Bundaberg region raised $150,000 for this sleep bus to be built. So he was looking for someone to take it on. So we eventually we decided to take it on, and we sort of, it's in the process. We just got it registered into our name and we just got insurance. So in the next little bit, we'll start getting that out there and sort of gathering support from the community, volunteers, donation sort of people who want to sponsor it and that sort of thing. So that's probably, that'll be in the next little bit as well. So that's really cool. There's not been a sleep bus here in Bundaberg before.
I've heard about it.
There is some. There's in Harvey Bay, I believe, is the closest one.
Okay.
And then there's Redcliffe, and there's 3 in Mackay, and I think Maroochydore or somewhere like that. There's another one. So they're all over the place.
Wow.
So we're working towards getting that sorted out. We have the sleep bus. It's actually in our possession up here. So that's really cool. That's a big part of it once you've got the thing. But now we've got to work out how to run it and gather all that support, financial support, volunteer support, business support, community support. So at the moment we're building a team around that. And because we're all quite busy with the other side of it, with the food that we do, we're sort of looking for a new kind of group of volunteers that are really passionate about that to sort of run that. So that's exciting. So my dad, Martin, again, he's the secretary. He's going to take the leadership on that one and kind of get that thing going. Because I haven't got enough time to do that too.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of...
This sounds like a lot in the woodworks there. I was just thinking about another thing that I used to volunteer down the Gold Coast. They used to serve lunches Christmas Day, and one of the things they used to do was rent out a storage unit. But how that works, just a thought, is they would get some of the volunteers to maybe rent it for 1 month. So everyone would just put their hand up and say, hey, I'll cover 1 month, or I'll cover the year. So ideally, hopefully, that could be something that maybe
Yeah.
the community could get involved in helping you with the storage of some of the things that you guys have, especially with another trailer and all that.
Yeah, that's a thought. Yeah,
You can
for
see
sure.
how quickly they can take up your whole backyard,
yeah,
front
yeah.
yard.
We already have one in there, and
Dining room table.
Yeah.
yeah, dining room table's quite often our loading pad where we load up all our crates and stuff.
Yeah,
So
no.
it's,
But hey,
yeah.
look, sounds like you've got a mammoth task ahead. It sounds pretty amazing too. I suppose before we kind of just wind down, what's one or two things that you would like the viewers to take away from today's discussion?
I think that, like, I had no idea I would be doing this. If I look back on my life and I think, would I be actually going out and doing this? I don't think that I would. I never thought that I would. But, life, I was dealt some cards that I had to deal with, and suddenly I started to see the other side of why people do what they do. And, I started to understand that how easy it is to get yourself into a spot through sometimes no fault of your own. Some of these guys are out on the street simply because their rent went up too much and they can't afford to pay it anymore, so, and they didn't do anything wrong. They weren't bad tenants. They were just, their income just doesn't allow them to rent anything, so I sort of, something that I would say is like that we need to take time to learn about people's journeys to where they got, how they got where they got. Like that guy Graham, he was the roughest, crankiest guy. The nurses in the hospital, they would call me and say, can you come in and help? He needs a shower, but he won't get in the shower. He will not do it. And he'd be swearing at him, and he'd be telling him he's going to sue them and all this sort of crazy stuff. For kidnapping him and stuff. And then I'd turn up there and I'd say, mate, what are you doing? You got to have a shower. And he'd go, all right, let's have a shower. And they'd say, what are you doing? How did you do that? But I think it's just because I had given him that respect and that care and that love, and he knew that that was a genuine thing. And I think if all of us started to go out and see people in that light, then maybe we would look upon things a bit differently and not sort of see that as just a problem that, these guys have done something wrong to get where they are. Or so that's kind of one of the things that I see is, people just they judge a book by its cover instead of actually looking at what's happening. And, being a school chaplain, I learnt that there's a lot of things going on in kids' lives, particularly that, no wonder they struggle to survive and behave well and learn. And there's a lot of things in the background that actually add up to why somebody does what they do. And, but the biggest thing I think that is Jesus Christ, without Jesus, I wouldn't be here. And I really got to give the full credit to him because, that's the rock that we're all standing on. And Let Hope Arise is built on that rock. That's what we're doing here. We're here to love people, but we're here to tell them about Jesus as well and actually show them what his love is like. And I think that's the most important thing, is, and sometimes we go out there and they don't agree with us. They don't want to hear that, but they can still respect that we've got that opinion and that belief, And then over time, we've seen that actually change people's lives because they've suddenly, these guys are consistent. They're continuing to come out. They're loving us. They're in the rain. They're doing it through all of their own life's problems and issues, and they're still here loving us. And there's no other way we could do that except if we didn't have Jesus. So for me, that's the most important story I would tell is that. And if you don't know Jesus, you just got to call out to him. That's it, and he does the rest. I sat there and called out on the lounge chair saying, where are you? And he answered my call, with a phone call from my sister. So, that's all it takes is a call out. And so that's what I believe. And I don't know what Tammy's got. Have you got anything?
I fully believe that our life experiences is what has given us the compassion for those that are lost, for those that don't have the hope, that are struggling, with what we've been through. It gives us that understanding. So I would say, like, don't regret your life choices or your life circumstances, because that is like they're what like create you, shape you into who you are, and you can use that. You can use what's happened in your life to reach others and to help them change their life. It's yeah, you know, and Jesus. But you know, I know that Jesus was with us through all of our circumstances, even before we started going to church. And like, I know that he was there, but yeah, it was those things that had happened to us that shaped who we are to be able to do what we're doing now. Yeah, I don't know if we would be able to do it without that. To have that same compassion and understanding for where people are at, and to just love them where they're at, because that's what we wanted. We wanted to be loved in our mess too.
Before we kind of wrap up, any final thoughts?
Yeah, sometimes people just don't know how to help people. Like, so my advice, I suppose, is just go out there and join a group of people that are helping. You know, like, there's the guys at Alexandra Park on a Sunday. You know, those guys just started doing it, and then people started joining them. You know, and that's what it's all about. It's just going out, finding the group of people and joining with them and helping them, and because we can all do more together than we can on our own. So a lot of the time people just don't know how to do it or what to do, you know, and that's what we found in our journey. A lot of people wanted to help people, they just didn't know how. So part of our job, I suppose, is what I see is to facilitate this so that people can come and serve, and you know, it's not so much for me to go and do the stuff myself, it's more for me to facilitate and empower others to come and do the stuff. So I think, you know, like, yeah, just look around where the needs are and then find out who's helping those guys and go and join in, because yeah, like, we're bigger together, stronger together than we are apart. Yeah, that'd be my final thing.
Nice. Well, okay, so before we then wrap it up, for those that want to get involved, how can they get a hold of you and where?
So yeah, we have an email address, which is lethopearise24@gmail.com. So you can send us an email, or we're on Facebook as well. Let Hope Arise Incorporated is on Facebook, yep. And or my phone number, which is 0409 203 146, and my name's Matt, obviously. So just give me a call and tell me, like, I have phone calls all the time from people that say, I want to help, how can I help? Or I've got this to donate, how can I do it? And you know, we'll facilitate what we can and get anyone involved if they want to get involved. It's as simple as that. Yeah.
Matt, Tammy, thanks for joining me today. Thanks for sharing your story about the wonderful work you're doing here in the community. And with all those details you've just mentioned, I'll also add that in the description below. And for everyone to get on board. So for joining me today, thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Matt.